Hi, welcome to Maker's Bar. I'm your host, Akshata Shetty. Today we have Dr. Tarun Pruthi, who is the co founder of Arunay Foundation. I am really excited about this interview because this is the first foundation that I'm interviewing, and I'm looking forward to learning more about Tarun's journey and understanding how the foundation got started. So, welcome, Tarun. Looking forward to talking to you and learning more about Arunay and spreading the word about what you're trying to do as well.
Sounds good. Thanks, Akshata.
Okay, so Tarun, let's get started on the questions. Could you share some background on Arunay Foundation and its mission as to what you all are doing and what is kind of the broad mission of the foundation?
Yeah. So Arunay Foundation was started after we lost Arunay to a rip current back in January 18th of 2021.
Mhm.
And was started with me and my wife Sharmishta, along with a bunch of our friends who encouraged us to do this at the time.
Mhm.
So since this was related to a beach accident, our goal primarily is to try to reduce beach accidents and coastal drownings
Mhm.
by raising awareness of the hazards of beaches and water itself in general.
Mhm.
Right. So we've divided our mission into three primary categories. They are educate, equip, and inform. The
Mhm.
goal of educate is for us to give education to kids and others beforehand, so they're aware of the beach hazards and water hazards and are prepared for those things.
Mhm.
The other main goal we have is equip, um, and that's about installing life-saving the rings along the California coastline, because
Mhm.
those things are very non-existing on our coastline, or even though they might be very common in other places like I've seen in Europe.
Mhm.
And the last mission that we have is inform.
Mhm.
Inform is about trying to leverage technology to save lives. This could be things like you're driving to the beach and you ask for directions on Google Maps, and as soon as you put the beach name on it, Google Maps has a flag associated with it automatically by pulling in data sources from things like NOAA, where it marks it as a red flag, for example, if the surf is supposed to be very high or things of that nature.
Mhm. Mhm.
So those are our primary um,
Golden
missions.
question. So, I'm sure you work for Facebook and starting like a foundation must have had its own set of challenges, and not many times that you see people starting a foundation. So, can you discuss some of the obstacles that you faced in your early days when you decided to start something like this, and where you're working obviously with different organizations as you're working through the foundation? So, how does one get started on a foundation, and what were the things that you faced personally as you were doing this?
Yeah, so obviously, first of all, I'm not here representing Facebook in any way. This
Yeah.
is a personal endeavor for us, so I'm purely representing Arunay Foundation here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think nonprofits come with their own unique set of challenges. It's kind of like a startup, but different, right? And since our goals are very associated with government, right? We're trying to install life-saving rings on the beaches, for example.
Mm-hmm.
That comes with a lot of challenges,
Mm-hmm.
because what we learned, for example, the first thing we learned is that every beach is under a different jurisdiction, which is something we didn't know. There are county beaches, city beaches, state beaches, now
Mm-hmm.
different jurisdictions, and depending on every jurisdiction, you have to get permits from them to install anything, even like a life-saving station,
Mm-hmm.
which is challenging, to say the least, right? You have to get approvals from the city, you have to get permits from California Coastal Commission. Um, Everyone's involved, and even just installing a post, it needs to be understood who owns that land and where you're installing it. Or
Mm-hmm.
are there any issues with installing it? Are there environmental hazards to it? We've run into all of those kinds of issues, we've had questions such as who's going to maintain the ring once it's installed. So I
Mhm.
think those are have been the biggest challenges
Yeah.
for us that we are just starting to navigate.
Yeah. So when you first started, like, did you know that you had to work with these government organizations? Because how did you go about navigating something like that? Like, whom did you approach? Did you like approach the local county, um, folks, or how did you kind of do that as you were
Yeah, I think
navigating?
it started quite naturally for us. I mean, of course, we had no idea what to do there. So there were people involved early on,
Mm-hmm.
um, right around when we lost Arunay and we were still looking for him,
Mm-hmm.
who kind of initiated this to begin with and helped us navigate
Process.
that initially.
Mm-hmm.
So the city of Half Moon Bay, I think, was very gracious in installing the first few rings, and they actually paid for the first few permits for
Mm-hmm.
of Half Moon Bay. Jim Pruitt and Virginia Chankirali were quite involved.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Jones from Sea Valor was quite involved in doing this and
Mm-hmm.
promoting this equip stream. Um, so I think we had help. Of course, when this happened, we had no idea what how difficult it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been learning since then. We've been trying to automate as many things as we can. We've been trying to install suppliers in place, for example, who can supply us with rings or boards or
Mm-hmm.
even the posts themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we've started making some relationships now with different cities.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes time. Each city has its own jurisdiction and government, there's county governments involved. So even knowing who to get in touch with is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we've now built collaborations with people who do permitting specifically, and they are much more aware of how to navigate government,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for example.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit as you are working through the foundation, and which is a very noble cause. And I would say, like, did you have any impactful story or outcome that resulted from the work that you all have done at the Arunay Foundation?
Could you clarify that question? Sorry.
Like any impact story
Oh,
based on
okay.
your work? Yeah.
Yeah, so we are installing a very physical device on the coastline, right? So in the city of Pacifica, we know that these rings have been used at least 3 times that we know of,
Okay.
which have directly contributed to saving people's lives. So I think that's quite impactful. I don't think there's anything more impactful than that.
So, is it just the Greater Bay Area or across California coastline that you all are working right now?
Right now, our focus is quite local. Or most of it is we've reached out to governments in city of South San Francisco. We've had some conversations with city of San Francisco, but most of the rings currently installed are in Half Moon Bay and in Pacifica, and
Mhm.
there's few on the bay side in city of South San Francisco.
I see. And then, as I think this is tying on to my question earlier, how do you make sure like the community is involved and basically how do you engage the community for towards your initiatives? I know you are doing a walkathon, right? Pretty soon, but how are you? I mean, how do you get folks coming? Because Makers Bar is all about education, and we want to. If somebody else wants to start a foundation, at least they'll get inspired by your story. Yeah.
Yeah, so our the main ways we are getting community involved is one, we do this annual walkathon. And this would be the third year that we are doing it independently,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had a significant number of people showing up. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
getting people to show up is a big challenge. So promotions are continuous, and you just have to continue doing it.
Wow.
We during the walkathon, of course, we have flyers on beach safety and water safety, and we try to do some talks on water safety. We have experts there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have East Bay Regional Parks, who has had a booth there regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And East Bay Regional Park lifeguards are also associated, have been super helpful in giving talks in schools.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been giving water safety talks in various schools in and around Bay Area, a lot of them being in Fremont, of course, where we are based.
Mm-hmm.
So water safety experts and lifeguards have been giving those talks for us. And I think that's very impactful. Kids directly get to hear from these experts on what to be careful about when you're near water. Because
Mm-hmm.
the when you think of water, right, the thing people have in mind is fun. They don't think of safety. When you go to a beach, you're not thinking I need to be safe. You're thinking I need to have fun.
Yeah.
Uh, Same thing with the pool, but at the same time, drowning is a leading cause of deaths in teenagers and children.
Yeah.
Um, so you have to be very careful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, ideally, it would be nice for us to be able to have some sort of water safety drills.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Earthquakes, for example, are not very common, but we do have earthquake drills. Same thing with fire. We do have fire drills.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen very often.
Mm-hmm.
Water is something we do get in touch with very often. People have pools in their backyards. People have community pools.
Mm-hmm.
People go to beaches very often.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, it would be nice to even start thinking about having water safety drills
Okay.
in schools.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think those are the main things that we involve community. And of course, we are installing these rings on beaches, which
Mm-hmm.
don't work without community, right? This is the first line of defense before anyone else can show up.
Yeah.
And of course, we don't want anyone to go into the water to save others. So throwing in a ring is one of the safest ways
Mm-hmm.
that you can do at a distance. So,
Yeah.
of course, community can also encourage cities and be our ambassadors and promote the installation of rings. We've tried to reach out to coastline communities somewhat, and we'll look into forming those relationships a
Okay.
lot more in the near future.
So, you talked about education being one of the pillars, and you're going to schools and educating kids about safety. What other programs are you all doing in terms of educating? Um, the I mean, we are on a coastline, right? So, educating folks. What other programs is the foundation right now working on?
I think that's been our major focus. We've been giving beach safety talks in various schools.
Yeah.
With respect to education, that has been our major focus, I would say.
Okay. And what is your vision for the foundation? Like as you try to, I mean, even whether it's a nonprofit or whatever, you obviously want to grow it and you want to see, some future leading to it, right? So what are like the future initiatives or projects that you want to take on, or you want to, have more rings around the coast, and where do you see the foundation going in terms of the vision?
Yeah, I think we want to expand each of those three things that I mentioned: educate, equip, and inform. Currently, that would be our goal. We want to reach out to more schools, have more water safety drills or beach safety awareness talks.
Mm-hmm.
We want to ideally equip all of California beaches with these rings.
Mm-hmm.
But like we discussed, it's difficult. You have to go city by city individually, and it's not easy by any means.
Yeah.
So, ideally, our goal would be to get some sort of a bill approved at the state level,
Yeah.
making something like this mandatory, even if it's on state beaches to begin with, for example.
Yeah.
And to do that, of course, we'll need to switch into fundraising a lot more than installation if we were to go down that route.
Yeah.
That would be one ideal circumstance.
Right.
And on the inform side, we haven't been very active on that right now, but that could be one of the most impactful things because
Mm-hmm.
um, everyone looks at the weather
Mm-hmm.
before going anywhere nowadays. Everyone looks at Google Maps and puts in the name of the location they're going to.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So we could use technology to
Mm-hmm.
give pre notification to people that conditions are hazardous where you're trying to go right now.
Hmm.
So you might want to be careful or avoid going altogether.
Okay. So, if somebody were to start a foundation, what advice would you kind of give them, especially if you want to start a nonprofit organization?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, right? Because and, and I've been told like nonprofits are more or less like startups, which is true.
Yeah, which is true.
And you should treat it like startups, except most of the people working for this particular startup are unpaid. So
Yeah,
motivating them is exceptionally hard.
yeah.
And to do that, you basically have to lean on passion a lot more.
Hmm.
So you're looking for people who are motivated by um, the passion, uh,
Hmm.
by the need to want to save people or improve people's lives. Um, so I think that's one of the most important things. If you want to start a nonprofit, you have to collect a group of like-minded individuals who are willing to put in their time to make this happen.
So, on that, so what are your reflections on leadership as you are running a nonprofit organization, and what I mean, if you're running something for not for profit, right? And as you said, you have to motivate a bunch of people who are very like-minded.
Right.
So, are there any learnings as to what leadership skills one would require to run an endeavor of this sort?
Um, I, I think I think it's hard, right? You have to know that you might fail and things may not work
Yeah.
in what you're trying to do. So you just have to keep at it. So persistence definitely is one of those important skills, I think, that
Hmm.
you have to use.
Hmm.
And you have to know that anything like this, right, community service is a thankless job, but
Yeah.
you have to be motivated by your passions,
Yeah.
uh, and you have to be present essentially.
Yeah.
If you're unable to do that, then it's very difficult to be able to motivate people.
Yeah.
um,
So, okay, let me ask you another question on leadership. How would you like hire, right? Because hiring for something like this is extremely hard.
yes.
How would you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, right, hiring for something like a nonprofit has to be passion based.
Yeah,
It's not about education, it's not about background, it's about empathy and
yeah,
what what clicks for a person may not click for another person, right?
yeah, yeah,
There are people who come with their own stories also. I think those might actually be good people to hire for a nonprofit, because their story is their passion, right? That's what's building their passion.
yeah, yeah. Totally agreed. I can't. You know, I would definitely say hiring for a nonprofit is extremely hard, and then managing that is even more harder. And I
Right.
think you definitely you have to have the passion ingredient more in a person who's working for a nonprofit than any other ingredient. So, tell us, how can one get involved with the foundation, and how can somebody contribute to your cause?
Yeah, I think the main ways to get involved, A, is that we are doing this walkathon on October 27th of this year in Quarry Lakes and Fremont. So we would love to have anyone who's available that day come to the walkathon and
Mhm.
learn more about us and beach safety and water safety and drowning prevention. We're going to have some interesting talks about that also, in addition to going
Mm.
out there and going for a run in a nice place. Um, that's the first one. And of course, we're a nonprofit, so we're always looking for donations to make these things happen, to install rings and all
Yeah.
of that. So feel free to go on our website, www.arunayfoundation.org, and click on the donate button.
Yeah.
If your companies are interested, in getting the corporates involved for sponsorships and donations would also be great.
Mhm.
And of course, finally, if you are living on the coastline, we
Mhm.
would love for you to become ambassadors for our foundation and advocating for installing more rings or for educational programs in your cities, even if you're not on the coastline.
Yeah, agreed. I think I love the coastline idea a lot because I didn't think about it personally, having somebody as an ambassador in the coastline, right? Because they have more incentive to do it since
Yes. Yeah.
they're residing on the coastline. That's an amazing thought. Um, so t- tell me. I mean, this is my final question to you. Is there like a key takeaway, or you want to share something with the audience on water safety or importance of community involvement, or even starting a foundation? Like if you had any key message for our audience.
Yeah, I would leave with a key message for water safety itself. I think, like I said earlier, right, when you think of water, you're not thinking of safety, you're thinking of fun. When you go to the beach, the thought on your mind is fun, not safety.
Yeah,
Same thing with pools, you're thinking of having fun, not
yeah,
of safety. But these things can be quite dangerous. California coastline is one of the most dangerous in the world. The waters are freezing cold. California gets big waves, big surfs. We get a lot of sneaker waves, which happen without giving you much of a notice, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I mean, there's very few big rocks between California coastline and Hawaii, so that's partially why California gets such large waves.
yeah,
Uh, so I would just say, like, uh, be safe.
yeah,
Think of safety also as you're thinking of fun
yeah.
when you're going near water bodies.
Yeah. I have to say I follow your Instagram of Arunay Foundation, and occasionally you post about sneaker waves and everything. And I am very well educated, and I have a young son. He's 8 years old, and whenever now I take him to the beach, I am extra careful, thanks to all the educational work that you all are doing. So I'm really
Thank you.
glad with all the work that you are doing, and I follow your Instagram very religiously. And most of the times you have something which is very informational for all of us. So thank you so much, Tarun. I really enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for coming on Maker's Bar and sharing your story. And I look forward to, I mean, helping your foundation in any way that I can, in any capacity, and looking forward to actually seeing your continued success within the foundation.
Thanks, Akshata.
Thank you.